Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole, and today I'm going to be choosing what books I'm going to be reading in the month of March. So to choose my books each month, I use my TBR game, which is the Unicorn game. This month, however, to choose my TBR, I will be playing the Unicorn game Mammoth Edition. So I will be participating in March of the Mammoths this month, and to do that, you just need to simply pick at least one book that is over 800 pages to start reading. You don't have to finish it by the end of the month, but you need to start it. And I will include in a description box a link to the channel that is hosting that and their announcement video. To incorporate that readathon into my TBR this month, I'm still using my game, but I've changed it up a little bit. So what I'll do is, per usual, I will start with my deck of cards that have letters on them, but instead of spinning a spinner wheel, I will be choosing books off the Mammoth list that I made. So last week I posted a video on 25 Mammoth books, and they were A through Z. So I already have them sort of pre-selected as my most anticipated reads. So, I'll basically just be picking a letter and picking whatever book is off that list. However, there are a few exceptions here. For example, if I pull the same letter twice, then I will have to try and find another book on my shelf whose title starts with that letter and is also over 800 pages. And per usual, if I can't find a book to match the prompt, then I will be picking a book from my unicorn. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about because you've never seen me play this game before, you can either go and watch some of the other videos or just continue watching and you'll figure it out eventually. Maybe. So let's go ahead and get started. I do need to shuffle my deck. Oh, in fact, that card doesn't even belong in the deck because that's definitely not a letter card. Oh, let me check this whole deck out. Okay, so I shuffled my deck and I'm ready to go with my first draw. Per usual with my game, I will be picking books until I have a total of up to 3,000 pages to read. I almost forgot that I do have one hopeful to get onto my TBR this month, and that would be The Picture of Dorian Gray. So I am, for the month of March, a co-host in The Picture of Dorian Gray Readalong, where we will be reading The Picture of Dorian Gray for the month of March, and there will be live sprints and a live discussion at the end of it, and reading sprints, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'll include that announcement video in the description box as well. There's just going to be all sorts of things in the description box for this. My first draw for the month, oh, is the letter O. All right, I need to go and look up and see what book that was. So the letter O was Once an Eagle by Anton Myrer. I'm going to mark the second month where I've had a military book on my reading list. Last month I read Black Hawk Down, and I guess in March I'm going to be reading Once an Eagle. So what is this book about? It says it's required reading for West Point and the Marine Corps cadets. Once an Eagle is a story of a special man, a soldier named Sam Damon, and his adversary over a lifetime, fellow officer Courtney Messingale. Damon is a professional who puts duty, honor, and the men he commands above self-interest, whereas Messingale, however, brilliantly advances by making the right connections behind the lines and in Washington's corridors of power. So I feel like this is kind of pitting like enlisted versus officers. I don't know if it's pitting them against each other per se, but it certainly sounds like it's exploring those two sides of the military. So I will be interested to read this and see how it goes. This book is 1,291 pages. So if I get another book this big, I may only have 2 books on my TBR this month. 3 if you count Dorian Gray. Okay, my second pick is the letter F. You would think because I just filmed the other video a week ago that I would remember what the books are, but I really don't. Let's find out. Okay, so for the letter F, I had Forever Amber by Kathleen Winsor. And yeah, this will be really interesting because it's 2 very different books. So Forever Amber is 972 pages long. So it is, also a mammoth, but also on the higher end of a mammoth. And this is about a young woman named Amber St. Clair, who is abandoned, pregnant, and penniless on the teeming streets of London. At 16, she uses her wits and beauty and courage to climb to the highest position a woman could achieve in Restoration England, that of the favorite mistress of the merry monarch, Charles II. So to me, this kind of sounds like it's along the lines of Fingersmith, but if I recall correctly, I think this came out in the 1940s and was extremely controversial at the time. I think probably still is, and I think is also a banned book. And if it's not, I'm very surprised that it's never been banned. So this should be a very different read, which I think will be good. It'll probably be a much lighter read than Once an Eagle. I don't know if I can get either of these as an audiobook because that would definitely help with reading them, but we'll see how it goes. Surprisingly, I'm still not at 3,000 pages. If you ever wondered how many large books it takes to get to 3,000 pages, we're all about to find out. So I actually still even have room for one more mammoth, more or less so. So let's see what the next book's going to be. So my third and likely final draw is the letter G. Okay, so for the letter G, I had The Garden of Seven Twilights by Miquel de Paulo. I am super excited. This is a more recent purchase for me compared to the other two, and I'm really looking forward to this book. So, unlike the other two books, this is again, yeah, a completely different genre. This is basically a sci fi dystopian. It takes place just outside of Barcelona in the year, I think, 2025. Is it 2025? Yeah, it's 2025, which is, I don't know if I'm ready to read something that's a dystopian that's that close. The premise of this book is basically that I think there's a nuclear attack that happens in multiple places around the world, including bombing major cities, including Barcelona, and that the main character manages to get an invitation and escape Barcelona and flee out to the countryside, I guess, where he's able to live on a millionaire's estate, basically. And he's there with a few other people, and they stay there for the next seven Twilights, telling stories. So basically, this is like a modern day dystopian version of the Decameron, if you know anything about that. In the Decameron, basically, they're fleeing the plague in Italy and they go out into the state and they tell each other stories to pass the time. So, this is similar in terms of that premise, but my understanding is that as they begin to tell each other stories about just their lives and that kind of thing, they start to recognize that there's connections and that all their different stories and situations may have implications um, on each other and maybe their involvement with what's going on. Not totally sure. Anyway, it's another big chunker coming in at 885 pages long. This takes me just over 3,000 pages, which is perfect. I was really afraid that like my last pick would be a 1,300 page book and I'd be way over 3,000. But yeah, I was not expecting to get this book on my TBR, obviously. So this is my TBR for March of the Mammoths and for March in general. I am really excited about the variety of books I have here. I have The Garden of Seven Twilights, which is a sci-fi dystopian, Forever Amber, which I guess you could loosely say is a romance. I don't know if it's technically considered a romance novel, but that's generally where I find it when I've seen it at the bookstores. And Once an Eagle, which is like historical fiction, military fiction. I also, don't forget, will be reading The Picture of Dorian Gray, which again is another 229 pages added on. So you can see my total for the month. And honestly, I don't think my total for the month is that bad. It still works out to needing to read just over 100 pages a day, which is usually pretty doable for me. And the weekends usually work well for catching up. I may have a read that I'm doing for my family book club, so hopefully I'll be able to get that on audiobook and squeeze it in. Hopefully one of these three books will also be on audiobook and I'll be able to like read them in tandem or something. Because that always helps. But if not, I should be able to read all of these with my eyeballs, in theory. Um, so that's it. I do, as always, consider this a pile of possibilities. So I do reserve the right to DNF or to not finish something this month or to even trade out one of these books if I'm just finding it's not working for me. I like to keep my TBRs fun and low pressure, but the game just helps me decide what to read next. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you will be reading in the month of March and if you are participating in March of the Mammoths. If not, let me know if there's any other readathons that you are going to be involved in. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye. Whoa. elves took out the unicorn.